Hello everyone and welcome to another video. My name is Matt and this is Code Journey. In this video I will teach you everything you need to know to get started with Git. We will cover what is Git, how to use it, what is Git extensions, what advantages this brings for us, and also what is GitHub and how to use it to create a brand new repository and start working right away. If you're new here and you want to get better as a software developer, don't forget to click the subscribe button below and let's get started. So let's start with what is Git. Git is a free and open source distributed version control system. So basically a lot of buzzwords, right? But the basic idea behind it is to have a way to version control our files. So let's put an example of what problematic Git comes to fix. Remember when you were in, I don't know, high school or college and you had to work in a Word document, for example? You were working on a very important essay on a generic topic and you were writing all your things and then you realize, oh no, this is not right, my name is not Matt, it's actually Sean Doe. But you weren't sure if this was the correct version and the one that you were going to give, or if this was like a fix and you will want to come back to the previous version for something. So instead of just saving the project, you will save it but with a different name. If that resonated with you, you probably had seen something like this, where you will have a folder with your project 2, your project final, and your project final. And I think we have all been there with this problematic. And now you can imagine this, but multiplied for a code base with, I don't know, maybe a team of 4 or 5 developers and having all their different code base and points in time that they want to go back to or make sure they don't lose some change. And you can see how this is a very real world problematic that we need to solve. Before Git, there were other version control systems in place, but Git was actually revolutionary in the way they did things and allow us much more flexibility and different things that we can achieve with it. So let's go back to our PPT. So how does it work? I think this image illustrates the main concepts of Git and we will use it to explain this further. So basically Git works in a server to many clients structure hierarchy like we see in the picture, and that is because we will have a central repository with the latest changes from all the team's members, and then we will have the local repositories for each client. So after we install Git in a couple of minutes, we will see how to work with our local repository, but keep in mind that you will need to make your changes go to the central repository or the server where others will be able to get them. And this is irrespective of in particular implementation or if the central repository is on the cloud or not. You can have your own Git server in your computer or in another server or whatever. Or you can use one that is hosted in a platform like GitHub or Bitbucket or whatever. And we will cover that later. But keep in mind that this is the theoretical model basically. So you will need a central repository that is the server, the Git server, and you will have your local repository that you will work directly with your computer. So this is you, the developer, working in your code or your files like we did before, and then you will commit your changes to your local repository, and after that you will be able to push from your local repository to the central repository. When you want to get changes or get the latest version of a code base, you will have to do a pull from the central repository to your local repository. So this is very important. So how to use Git? Well, the first thing you need to do is install it. You need to install Git. So let's see how to do that, and the link will also be in the description below. To install Git, you can just go to Google and type install Git and you will get these results. Go to the second one, download Git, and it will propose to you what is the version that it assumes you will be using based on your operating system. In my case, it will be Windows. You can click download. It will take a little while. Just wait for it and go next, install it, and you will be set with Git. So after you have Git installed, then you can go to the reference to the docs in the Git page, and you will get this that is very well organized into categories, basically setup and configs, getting started and creating projects, basic snapshotting, branching, merging, etc. The most important ones for me will be just check the git command, check the init and clone, add status, diff, commit, all of those very important. And then working with branches, we are not going to cover branches on this particular video because I want to touch on other technologies and how to make everything work together, even if we work with only one branch, but we could make another video on this topic later on. And basically the operations that we talked before, pull and push, very important to interact with the server, right, to the central repository. So you can dive in and go through all these commands, but let's get back to our PPT. So once you have this Git installed, you can go through the docs like I just mentioned and learn all the commands and live a painful life, or you can use a nice user-friendly tool that will help you out. Enters GitExtensions. So what is GitExtensions? GitExtensions is a standalone UI tool for managing Git repositories. So the idea is, instead of having to learn and memorize all these commands and work with a bash or command line interface, if you are not a fan of them, then you can have a nice UI that will help you out to understand the status of your repository and work with it in an easy manner. So you can go ahead and just download GitExtensions, and again, next. You can read a little bit of the installer, but you will get your GitExtensions working pretty easily. After you get GitExtensions installed, let's see how it will look. So basically, this was the folder that we were working before with my project and blah, blah, blah. And I created a Git repository for this folder using GitExtensions. So once you install it, if you configure the integrated menu option for Windows, for example, then you will have in the context menu these options for Git extensions: open repository, commit, and extensions. In this case, if you are in a folder that does not have a Git repository already, you will have one option that will be create a Git repository or clone a Git repository. In this scenario, I already created one, and just to show you how this works and looks a little bit, right? So we will have branches already by default. We will have one branch that will be master or main, and then we will see the list of commits in here, right? We talk about this, and commit was the operation you did to move your changes to the local repository. So in here we are looking at the local repository. And then, for example, now I have 8 more changes. See that it says commit 8. That is because I have 8 changes that I can commit to our local repository. And this will, of course, just show. Okay, it wouldn't allow me to move the the files that are blocked by the PPT, but I can move the others and enter a message with the commit, some files, and commit the changes. And now you will see that I have another commit in here for my Git repository. I can also move this to push to a central repository if I have that configured. That is not the case for this one. You will also have the author information that you probably entered while you were installing the Git extension. That will be a name and basically an email. This will also show the dates of each commit. You can see the difference that will show you what the commit modified in the source code, and so on. I think by now you should get the idea that this is much easier than working in a command line and typing like at least 7 commands to do a couple of operations as a commit and a push. You can go the route of the command line if you prefer it. I just show you the doc and you can go through each command. They are not that difficult. I have worked with them before. It's just that I prefer using a user interface that makes my work easier and faster. So let's go back to the PPT because we have one more topic to cover, and that will be then what is GitHub, because I get that many beginners or developers that have never worked with Git get very confused between Git and GitHub and how to use all these commands and so on. So basically, remember that we said Git needed a server side for the central repository. Well, GitHub is a platform for hosting your Git repositories on the cloud. Of course, GitHub also offers much more things, like a community is kind of a social network where you can connect with others and start the repositories and collaborate and work in an open source projects and so on. But the main idea is that it is a platform for hosting your Git repositories on the cloud. Before we said that central repository can live in any computer. Well, basically GitHub is that computer on the cloud, so you can collaborate and share those repositories with the people that you want to work in another server without having to host that yourself. So let me show you around on GitHub. If you go to github.com, you will be presented with this page, and you will need to create an account, of course, username, email, password, and so on. And once you create your account, you will be presented with your profile. You can go ahead and customize it, put an image, and start creating your repository. You will be able to see all your activity once you start pushing, and this goes years back and so on. But basically, the most important thing in here regarding, besides the overview, will be the repositories. In here, you can create your own repository, go to New, to the New button, and then you can create a repository name, maybe my first Git repo, for example, put a description, this is a test for my first repo, and make it public or private. You can pick, I don't know when, but I remember that before the repositories couldn't be private in GitHub unless you paid, but they have allowed that, so you can have your own private repositories hosted free of charge in GitHub. They have some functionalities that are only available for public repositories or paid accounts, but it is pretty fine. If you just want your own private repos to work there, that is okay. It comes to each use case, and if you need a private repository for collaboration and so on, just go ahead and check which service works better for you. So if we create a public repository in here, we go and click the create repository button, and it will just create one basically, and it will tell you this is the URL for your repository, and you can copy it and give you a couple of ways to move forward with your repository. You can create a new one on the command line, or push an existing repository from the command line, or import code from some other version controls. Remember that we talk about other version control systems like Subversion, Mercurial, or TFS. But we don't need to do any of this because we learned how to use Git extensions, right? So with Git extensions, we can just go to the folder where we want to copy or clone our repository, do a right click and select the Git extensions clone, and that will paste the direction that you copied from GitHub on repository to clone, the destination, the subdirectory to create, and you can just clone it, and it will go to the GitHub URL and clone your repository. And then we will have our repository in place. In here, my first Git repo will be already cloned and ready to put files in here and commit and push them. So let's do a try. If we go ahead and copy 3 images from the presentation of today into this folder that has a Git repository, we can do a right click and Git extensions open repository, or directly commit if you wanted to, and we will be presented with the same interface that I showed you around before. And we can just commit, basically put some message, commit and push, and that will do everything together. And already this is pushed into our repository on GitHub. So if we go ahead and check my first repository, you will see that we have the 3 files that we have just committed and pushed from our folder. So this is how easy and convenient Git extensions is. You can just do a couple of clicks and have your repository created on GitHub, cloned using Git extensions, and it is ready and set up to be able to move your code, start making changes, and commit and have a history that will allow you to go back in time, make sure that everything is together, also track your progress, and share with the community your amazing projects that you will be creating. If you like this video, don't forget to smash the like button below and leave me in the comments if you want more in-depth guides about Git and how to work with branches, how to do merges, and so on. So thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.